Hi guys, in today's video I thought I'd do something a little different. I have just released my new single Horizons, so I thought it would be cool if you could just have a listen all together and I'd kind of show you the sounds I use, why I structured it, the way I structured it. There's some interesting little details and stories here and there, so I just want to give you an insight into how I approach producing a synthwave song. So if you're up for that, then let's dive right in and I'll see you again towards the end of the video. Alright, so here we're in Pro Tools, and why don't I just start and then I'll stop after a while and we'll get the discussion going. So here's the intro and say the first drop. Right, so the first interesting thing here that came to mind is how there are certain sounds which are actually the same patch on both the drop and the intro, but they kind of sound very different. And let me show you what I mean. So this is kind of the first sound you hear, this kind of pluck lead, and the same patch, listen what it sounds like on the drop. Well, let me solo it for you, of course. Right, so again, comparison, intro, drop. Much more energy there, right? And that is basically just playing around with some of the parameters. So in this case, I'm just opening up a cutoff filter a little more on the drop, letting more high frequencies pass through. So it all sounds much more full and energetic. And I'm using a similar trick for these kind of analog strings I have here. It's this sound. So very laid back, very chill, and this is it on the intro, but listen to how dramatically it changes. Still same patch, but listen to it in the drop. So the first obvious thing is it's pumping now, right? I just added a compressor to kind of make it pump in rhythm with the music, to add some movement there, but that's not what I was referring to. This is the kind of string sound on its own. And it was nice and everything, but it just wasn't kind of full enough. It was missing some body, some weight for me, so I added an extra string layer underneath it, which sounds like this. You know, much more low-end kind of energy. So the two together, you know, they're kind of perceived as kind of the same sound in the mix, but it's actually two different layers. So that I thought was interesting as well. What else? Well, let's start in order. We have the drums here, of course, a nice drum beat. And you know, to keep things interesting here, that's another little trick. I added some percussion. So basically this is a 4-bar beat, and at the end of each one of those 4 bars I added some extra percussion to keep things interesting. So this is what I added at the end of the first bar. It's just some snare hits really. At the end of the second bar I added some claps. At the end of the third bar a claves sample with this nice stereo kind of delay. And then at the end of the last bar, I added the legendary cowbell. So, you know, instead of keeping the same beat for all 4 of those bars, I think with a little bit of percussion, it can just be more interesting. There's more variety there. Another cool thing I think about the drop here is the bass sound. So usually in chillwave and synthwave and similar genres, you would go for a synth bass, of course. You know, it's a synth-based genre. But in this case, I was just playing around and I found these cool Music Man electric bass samples. So this is what the bass part sounds like on its own. Super fake, right? I mean, if you listen to it in solo, you can immediately tell it's just me playing some samples on my keyboard using the pitch bend. It just doesn't sound like a real bass, you know? But, you know, in the mix, you don't really notice as much, do you? So if it works in the mix, then, you know, I'm happy with it and I can move on. So that's something special about this song. It has an actual sampled electric bass. So, and there's one more thing I wanted to speak to you about. Yes, here it is. So on top of all of these parts, so we got the pluck part, we got the strings double layered, we got the drums, we got the bass. I thought we need something more nostalgic. And so I went for a very classic 80s kind of polysynth sound, this one right here. And the secret to its nostalgic kind of character is in this delay plugin right here. And this is basically what it does is it changes the pitch of the delayed signal. So it kind of sounds a bit out of tune. And to me, this is very nostalgic because when I was a kid, we would still listen. There were CDs already. I was born 30 years ago. So, you know, we had CDs, but we had lots of, you know, tape cassettes as well. And on those, if you're familiar with them, the pitch kind of tends to flutter a bit every now and then. The same kind of things happens on VHS cassettes. Those I've watched tons of as a kid. Very nice memories. So whenever I hear some pitch fluttering, sort of, I am immediately brought back to those times. So that's the nostalgic character of this pad for me. So let me actually deactivate the delay here. And this is what the patch would sound like without it. So, you know, very 80s, still a bit of nostalgia there, but the true character comes out with the delay on. Listen to that nice tail, it's muffled, it's a bit out of tune. I love it. That's what I went for there. Moving on, yes, let's move on to the verse. Okay, so the first thing is, of course, the energy level is much lower than during the drop, right? So the drum pattern is much more simple. You just got a kick and a clap. The bass is simpler as well, and I have just a handful extra synths there. But it's good, so, you know, I think it works because I'm giving you something to look forward to. It's like, oh, you know, there's not as much going on here, but at the end of it, I'm going to have a drop with all that fullness and that full sound. And so, yeah, it's kind of the song is breathing. So the drop would be the peak, but now we are going down into one of the valleys. So we can look forward to the next peak. But anyways, you still need to keep things interesting, right? So I added a nice little synth part here. Yep, there it is. Slowly growing. And at its peak, it sounds like this. So, you know, just some nice kind of weird chords with, you know, some weird notes here and there. And another addition here would be this pluck part down here, the blue one. A bit like a trance pluck. And the cool thing about this part is towards the end of the verse, I'm kind of lowering the cutoff filters again. So, you know, I'm taking away even more energy. everything is getting muffled, but this plug is kind of growing again towards the end. There's more energy being added, and then you just add, you know, that kind of snare roll, and we're good to go. We can just move on to the next drop, which comes immediately afterwards. So again, it's a bit, I think you got to keep the song breathing, you know, peaks and valleys, right? Movement, variety, diversity. If it always were on the same energy level, it would become boring after a short while. So we got a chorus, now a drop, but it sounds exactly like the previous drop. So didn't want to add new stuff here because it's like I have just introduced to you the first drop. So and then I've given you a verse which is completely different. So I want to give you something which you know is going to be good, right? So I don't want to change things up too much there. So I'm giving you another drop, and then it's back to verse. So again, the challenge here is to kind of keep the same chord structure of the previous verse, because it needs to be verse number 2, right? But you need to change something. And at the same time, you need to take away energy, because we just had a drop, right? So I'm just blubbering. Let's have a listen to it. Alright, so that was the verse, and it sounds familiar, right? We still have that same 80s kind of synth pad, but this time around the drums. Pay attention to the drums. It's a little more intricate, the pattern here. Also, there's nothing at the beginning, right? Vinyl crackle, and then they come in. So it's a bit more of a complex pattern here. We have some hi-hat action. Not as busy as the drop for sure, but busier than the first verse. And also we have, oh, this is interesting. I've added 2 more non-synth kind of instruments. We have an electric piano here. Do any of you guys know the band Supertramp? Very famous in the 70s, and they had this kind of signature electric piano sound. And there is a song, I can't remember the title, but it's based around this kind of electric piano rhythm. It's one of their most famous songs, and I just love it so much. And I thought, hey, I need to steal some of that. And so, you know, I added this electric piano, and the rhythm is kind of continuous, you know. It's just repeating those chords all the time. And so I thought I need to balance that out with something that has a bit more of space in between chords, you know, a different kind of pattern. And so I was, you know, flipping through presets because I wanted it to be a non-synth instrument. So I didn't want to design the sound from scratch. I wanted to use a real instrument. And I was clicking through presets on the sampler, and I found this. And this is a clavy sound, very plasticky, very cheap. But hey, I thought it worked really well together with the electric piano. You know, so never ever would I have thought I would be using such a sound, but I think it kind of works in context. And again, this is all that matters, right? We are going to listen to this song in context. On Spotify, you have the version with all the tracks, not the single track. So that is what needs to work. And then again, towards the end of the verse, we're like, okay, we've had this before, verse, chorus. What is going to come next this time? Is it going to be the chorus again? No, of course not, because I have already given you something you already knew. You know, now I need to spice things up. I need to give you something different. So here's the next section. And this is there for the purpose of kind of delaying the next drop. but the image I had in mind here was like poolside, you know? And in particular, here we go. I have some watery samples. I have a splash, but the splash sample alone was too short, so I added this rowing a boat sample. It is what it is, right? It's what it says it is, but it kind of helped me with that poolside image. And then I wanted kind of a sound which would be, you know when the light shines on the pool, and the surface of the pool, of course, isn't still, you know, it's just moving all the time. So maybe there's trees or other objects on the side of the pool, and the light is being reflected onto those objects. But since the surface of the pool is moving all the time, so is the light reflection on those objects. I had this image in mind, and I found this sound here. Which, you know, that was the sonic transposition, sort of, that image I had in mind. I didn't tweak anything here almost. It's a preset on this sampler here, Expand. And, you know, it's some wind chimes, a bit of water sounds in there as well. It was just perfect. So all I had to do is I had to layer one of the sounds we knew from before. And in this case, it was our strings here. Again, same trick, the cutoff filter opening up. You were expecting a drop here, right? No, surprise, I'm delaying it even further. I wanted to give the drums their moment to really shine and be in the spotlight here. Because at the beginning of this next section, that's basically all I got going on. There's a bit of that low-end kind of string layer, the one we talked about before. But that's really, you know, laid back, and the drums are definitely the star. So a bit of glory for the drums, but just for a bar or two, because then a very new element is slowly starting to creep in. This guy. So I'm bringing in a completely new sound. It's kind of this arpeggiated part, because yeah, you sometimes you don't need to simply switch up the structure, but you need to actually bring in something new to keep things interesting. You've heard me say this a million times in this video already, but keep things interesting. And the rest of the gang is coming in as well, the bass, the plucked kind of lead from the beginning, and it all finally leads us to the last drop. And now it's a bigger drop because it has that new arpeggiated part as well. So I'm kind of saving the best for last. But that's all you get, only half a drop. Because the second half of it is actually turning into an outro. So I'm changing things up quite a bit there. I'm just gonna play it to you. So basically, let's start from the beginning. So the drums, these are my drums, by the way. That's interesting. Have a look here. These are the MIDI notes present in the drop. So, you know, you don't need to understand this, but there is a lot going on, as you can see. And these are the notes on the outro. So way less happening, right? So basically, there's a lot of spaces in between hits now. And I wanted to fill those spaces up, right? But kind of without filling them up, if that makes sense. So instead of adding some, I don't know, percussion or some extra hits, I just thought, well, let's just send all of it to a delay. And here's what that sounds like. Growing in intensity. So, I think this is kind of the best of both worlds, because you're taking things away, because it's an outro, right? So you need to lower the energy level, but you need to keep things interesting again. So why not just use a delay? So you're not adding anything new really, but you're repeating something you already have, which you didn't before, sort of, if that makes sense. Anyway, I love the delay trick, and I used it down here. Remember the nostalgia pad? Same thing. Lots of chords going on in the drop here, only 3 chords in the outro. So I changed the delay settings here. Let's have a listen. This is kind of the regular delay. And now the new one. It's kind of like it's diffusing the sound, plus it has a very nice tail. It's, I don't know, it just, I think, fills those gaps. Adding something interesting, at the same time you're taking something away, because I only have 3 chords now as opposed to more than 3 during the drop. And the rest of the gang, I'm basically just starting to close up those low pass filters. So I'm filtering away the high end energy, and it just all gets very muffled and slowly dies out, sort of. Right, so this is my new single Horizon. So first of all, how did you like it? Let me know in the comments, drop a line. I'm really curious to hear your opinion about this one. And as some of you know, I host my music on Bandcamp, which means that usually whenever a sale is made there, a certain amount of the money goes straight to Bandcamp, which, it's perfectly fine, because, they need to put food on the table as well. So nothing wrong with that. But every now and then they do a thing called Bandcamp Day, where basically all of the sales made on that day, the money goes straight to the artist. So the next Bandcamp Day is tomorrow, Friday, November 6th. So to celebrate that, I have 2 deals myself. So Horizon, my new single, the one we just heard, is gonna be pay what you want. So you can name your price, even 0 if you want to, so you can get it for free. Or I don't know, 50 cents, €1, 10 euros, 100 euros. Wouldn't mind that. And the second deal is all of my discography, so everything I have released up until now is heavily discounted, so you can get all of it for about $5 or €5. So those are the 2 deals I have in place. So I'm gonna put a link in the description, just putting it out there. If you ever thought about supporting the channel and purchasing some of my music, tomorrow would be the perfect day to do so. And if not, no problem. I'm gonna be happy with even just a like and a subscribe. So that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again on the next video, as always, in about 2 weeks time from now. Take care.